Hey and welcome back to the channel. So today's video is all about upgrading the interior look and feel of the car. So one of the things that I've done previously in other minis is actually replace the Speedo and also the rev counter. So whenever you use a car, they're the two things that you look at the most, so it makes sense to me to actually upgrade the looks of it to go with the theme of the car. And I think there's plenty of companies out there that do replacement dial faces that you can buy off the shelf. I've worked with Chameleon LEDs for the last couple of cars I've done, and they do me custom dial faces, and they do really good quality, print them, they fit really well, the light coming through them is nicely broken up as well, so they look really good. So decided to get a set of their dials and get them fitted to the car. So for those that don't know what that looks like, so if you look like on the R56 as standard, you get like this silvery finish on the dial faces, which is fine, but if you look at the interior of this car, there's a lot of black and yellow going on, and I've removed sort of 99% of the silver now on the inside, whether it's the controls, etc. So that's sort of the plain standard look. This is an example of an aftermarket one, so these are Luxworks ones that came on the car. So the reason I wanted to remove them, you can see they've got the Instagram logo of the previous owner of the car. And plus I like to put my own stamp on things, so when you look, a lot of the mods that may have been on the car are now being changed up a little bit, just can put my own stamp on it, so I've got my own wheels and everything on it. But you can see there, in terms of quality and the way they're printed, is very similar in terms of the OEM and the aftermarket ones. So not sure who actually made these for Luxworks, whether it was Chameleon LEDs or another company. But they're very, very similar in terms of replacing the OEM stuff. So technically, other than the actual design itself, you wouldn't know that you were fitting aftermarket ones. That's how good the quality is from the ones from Chameleon LEDs. So what I'll do now is, I've already actually gone through the fitting process and recording this video a bit backwards. So I'm going to flip the camera around and show you the new dials fitted to the car. And then for those that are interested, I'm going to do a bit of a how-to video, not going into too much in-depth detail, but giving you a general overall feel for how to install them in the car as well. So it's definitely a DIY mod. The only concern I have is, especially on the R56, is removing those needles, because for some reason they're so prone to breaking the motors. So I'm putting a big warning flag now, caution, that if you are going to do this yourself, feel free to follow the steps that I cover in this video, but I'm not going to show you how to change the needles. There are videos on YouTube, and I'll put a link to some of those, but I advise leaving this to the professionals, or if you want to take the risk, it's all down to yourself in terms of taking that risk. I'm not going to encourage you to remove the needles yourself. It can be done, and I'm going to do it myself. It's just I'm happy to take the risk, and if I break it, I know that it's my responsibility, and I can go out and purchase the new dials, because you have to buy a new cluster potentially if you damage them, and it's not just an off the shelf, you've got to get the right one, and potentially have it coded to the car. So let's flip to that now, and show you the dial faces, and then for anyone that wants to see and get a feel for how to install them, keep watching after that. Okay, so we're in the daylight now, and you can see it's a bit tricky with some of the reflections, so let me try and angle the camera. There you go. So you can see all the dial faces here. So I've gone for a black and yellow theme to match the rest of the interior of the car, and they look really smart. I'm really pleased with that. You can see the previous owner actually changed these a couple of times, and when I brought the car there was an issue with this dial, but I've taken it apart and it now works better. And as soon as I put the key into the ignition, I'll just grab the key out of my pocket and actually put that ignition on, you can see it all resets and goes back to normal. Then I'm just trying to find an angle that you're not getting the sunlight on the dials. Again, you can see the rev counter there, it looks really smart and sort of works with the black and yellow theme of the interior of the car. So really pleased with those, and you'll see it's really tricky to see, but I'll try and insert a photo now of them in the at night as well, because of the white LEDs that I've got already installed. So that's nothing to do with the dial faces, they're already installed in the dials, and I'll show you them at night. Wow, so with the car off, you can see those white LEDs, and I think that looks absolutely amazing with the new black and yellow theme. So we start the car, ignore the fact that there's absolutely zero petrol because I'm currently self-isolating, so I can't go and get any. But there you go, you can see them now lit up and looks absolutely spot on. Really pleased with them. Chameleon LED have done a great job of printing those, and they've come out really well. And then you've got the white LEDs. They just give something a bit different to the standard orange that you'd normally get. So I think that's a really smart upgrade, and I'm quite glad that the previous owner had that done, because I certainly benefit from it, because I think that looks really smart in the dark. So if you do fancy having a go at fitting them, there's a bit of a guide on how to do it. Okay, so in the packaging that you get from Chameleon LED, let's open that up now. So it's well wrapped in terms of bubble wrap. There should be 2 dials in there, so let's get that open. Be a bit more gentle and try not to damage them. So you can see there, you've got the Speedo all the way up to 150 with the icons and the yellow and black theme to match the rest of the car. So that's one. Then I've also got the black and yellow theme again for the rev counter. So we'll be taking both of those apart and fitting each of them to the R56. As mentioned in the intro, I'm going to be changing the dial face here and here. Now, I do tend to do how-to videos with stuff like this. However, it is really easy to break these needles if you get it wrong. So if you look at this, by the looks of it, there's a bit of an issue with the previous owners taking this on and off, on and off. It doesn't quite reset. Now, when I start the car, it goes back to 0 and reads absolutely fine, but you can see it has dropped down. It is easy to break. Now, from what I understand, it's not plug and play to replace either of these, especially the rev counter. That from there, it's really easy to break that, and that is unique to the car. So if you happen to break this while you're removing the needle, you'd actually have to find the exact one that's specific to your R56 and potentially have to get it programmed or buy new from the dealer, which will cost a hell of a lot of money. So if you're doing anything in terms of swapping dial faces, either be really careful or leave it to the professionals. Okay, so let's start off by talking about changing the dial faces. You need to get this clock face off, so you need to get the surround off. So the first things you need to do is up here, you'll see there's a hole just in there. There's one both sides, there's one this side as well. If you look just in there, you can catch the light properly, you can see a screw hole. So that's a T20 Torx screw. There's like this plastic trim that you need to pop off. So that normally sits just in there. You need to pry that off and get a T20 in there. And there's also one in this side as well. So that holds it in from the very top, and it allows you to pull this forward. So they're the first screws I would remove. Next thing, we need to get these painted trims out the way, which is easy enough. If you don't have the secret compartment here, then you'll just need to pull that black panel off. But if you've got the secret panel like I have, then it's really easy. Next, we need to just pop this off. So I'll get a trim removal tool and do that. Okay, so if we just pop this bit of trim, get my finger in, get that out the way. Okay, so you can see we've got a screw here and a screw just in there. So again, trying to get the sun off the camera as much as I can. Take your T20 screwdriver and take these screws out. Let's get these 2 out first. And you pretty much have to repeat this on the other side as well, because these surrounds around the vents actually come off with that. So what I'm going to do, make sure I get my magnet in to get that screw. Yep. If you don't want to lose any of these in the dash, so I always keep a magnet handy so I don't lose them. And drop them down. Let's get this second one out. Okay, that's the second one out. Always make sure you keep hold of these screws, you don't want to lose any of them. So this piece of trim here, the gloss black again. So if we drop the steering down a little bit, give us as much room as we can. I actually noticed the other day that this panel is missing. I didn't realise that when I brought the car, whether it's in a box somewhere in the garage maybe. So you just pull. So I've just put my hand behind those dials and pulled that outwards, because this black panel is actually just clipped in place. So again, all you need to do is gain access to the screws. So if we look again, it's just the reverse of what was on. Put my indicators up. Right, so it's just a reverse. So you got a screw here and a screw up top. To show it there, just a screw in there as well. So let's go get those removed next. There we go. So that's that screw out. And if I just shift across, you can see the screw is this one just here at the top. So two very next to each other, so it's the one on the left. Okay, so I've just discovered it's probably easier just to remove this out of the way. So if you pull your steering wheel all the way forward and down, make sure this plastic panel is removed at both ends and unclipped, and you should be able to just squeeze it up, there you go, and out. You can see that just clips in, and that gives you full access to this screw here, which I'm now going to remove. So remember, there's two, as I said, there's two screws next to each other. It's the one on the left. Okay, so that's that one out. So you can see that front cover pops straight off. So what you can do is just lift it up. You can see there's a little connector on the back of here for your hazard lights. Undo that, and then we can maneuver that out the way so you actually get to the dial face now. Okay, then the next stage to actually get this out of the car. So there's two more screws remaining, so if you just follow the end of my screwdriver there, you can see there's another T20 Torx bit screw just in there. So you can see where this case comes down, there's a white bit there that sticks out, and the little black panel there. There's a screw that side and screw right in there. So if you undo both of those Torx screws, this should be able to lift out. Now the one thing is, obviously you run the risk of dropping that screw in there, so make sure you've got a magnetic screwdriver so you don't lose that screw into your dashboard and have it rattling about. You could, if you wanted to make it easier, remove the screws and remove these bits of trim, but I think you should be able to manage it, especially if you've got a magnetic screwdriver, without worrying too much. Or just get a normal screwdriver and attach a magnet to the screwdriver, and that will make it magnetic, and make sure that you don't lose those two screws. Once those two screws are out, this whole dial face will now lift out. At this point where I can get to these little sort of clear tabs, and I actually push down on those and pull, and I can't really do it with the camera in my hand, but I'm able to pop that glass while all this is in situ, so I don't need to remove as much of it, and I actually do all the work in changing this dial face while it's all in place. So I'm going to do that now and then show you the end results. But I mean, you can see here the reason why I'm changing this: one, not a big fan of the design, but two, it's also got the previous owner's Instagram username etc printed on it. So Chameleon LEDs have hooked me up with a set of rev counter and Speedo, which I'm going to switch in. Sorry for all the reflection. So I've literally just pressed on all these clips, and if you get skinny fingers, you can get them sort of in and around here, and it will all eventually pop off. You can see you can remove that clear cover, which gives you access to the dial face itself. So if you remember rightly, this black bit pops off, so that black surround just unclips. Then you've got to remove the needle, and that's the really scary bit for anyone doing this job, and this is the bit that you can get wrong. I've seen lots of different tips, whether it's getting two forks and putting it under each side and lifting it off. I'm going to give it a go now and see how I get on. So again, and apologies, there's a lot of reflections in here at the moment, so the lighting's a bit off on the video, but this black surround actually holds the dial face in place. So if you look, there's just press down clips along the top, and you just press down on the backs of those, so you can pull that away enough to be able to get the old dial face out, hopefully. So it's not going to lift around there, so I may have to try and pull. Well, there we go. So that's completely off then, so you should be able to just bring the old dial faces out. So if you're doing this for the very first time, the stock dial faces may have a tab of glue or whatever on, but you can see that's all completely off the car now and ready for the new dial face to go on. Okay, so you can see I've popped the needle off there now, so everything's ready for the new dials to go in. So if we slot those on, that's really simple, because if you look, there's little locating pins on that, so that goes on nice and easy and obviously fits the surround. At some point I will go for new dials completely, because I'm going to delete all of this and do a sort of double DIN head unit down here. But for now, I mean, it's a little bit tricky because of the reflections, but there you go. You can pick that up now on the screen. That looks really smart. I'm just going to give it a bit of a dust before I put the needles back on as well, so there's no fingerprints inside or anything like that. Okay, so the one thing I would mention with this is, again, it's not a how-to, because I don't want the risk of people damaging because of my instructions, but I'm just going to make sure that gets reset at 0. So hopefully if we start the car now, that Speedo should work and there shouldn't be any concerns. So other than the hazards button, nothing else disconnected, so I might actually grab the key and just give it a bit of a test. Okay, and having that engine on, you can see my dial isn't pointing at 0. That needs to be pointing at 0, so I'm going to just remove it using the process, reset it back to 0, so I've got no issues, and I definitely need some fuel. Okay, and you can see now I've took that off, got that pointing at 0, so I'm going to give it all a bit of a clean up, then get this dial face all back together, get the dash back together, and then we're going to take a look at the turn those indicators off, look at that rev counter next. Okay, so I'm going to put all this back together, just slip that ring back on, so that gives you a nice surround. This bit's got to go on, I think that slots in that way, and again just clips in all the way around, so that's all back on. So what I'm going to do now, there's lots of different screws and everything to take all this apart, so again you can find those guides, and you can see that has dropped, but as soon as you put the key back in, it does reset back to 0, so you can tweak that. So I'd make sure you're happy with it and it's all working before you put yours back together. Okay, so it's time for me to start messing around with the rev counter now. So there's 2 bolts in the back of this if you come down to remove it, and that's probably the easiest route. You won't actually take the whole thing out the car, just undo those bolts so you get a bit of access to it, and then you can take a look at the back, get to the screws and undo those, because there's 2 screws or 3 screws I think on the back of this casing, so you do it all in situ pretty much. Okay, and you can see on the back of it there's 3 screws. So again, I don't disconnect any of this, just undo those 3 screws and it will give you access to the front of those dials to put the new faces in. Okay, once apart, you can see I've just disconnected this cable here from the back of the dials. You can actually get that out the car now and work on it while it's out the car, so that'll make your life easier. And similar to the other dials, is you unclip all these black clips around the edge, and then you've got the little clear clips that allow you access to the dial face itself. And then just like the other side, there's just this black surround. Get that off, and again you've got to take that needle off. I'm not going to show you because I don't want people to risk breaking it based on my instructions, but that needle comes off and then we're able to replace it. Now, big massive warning, if you're going to do this yourself, then this is the bit that could be the expensive bit if you break. So please be ever so careful if you do this and follow other people's instructions. So don't take any responsibility for any dials that are damaged, because these are expensive to replace and hard to get hold of because you can't just buy any one off the shelf. So when you take that off, be so careful. Okay, so once you've put this dial back together, just remember to put the 3 screws in the back, the 2 bolts in, and just slide it onto this metal bracket under here and get that all back in place, and then your dials are now installed for your rev counter. What I'm going to do is just record these at night, because I've actually got white LEDs installed behind these, so they should light up really nicely compared to sort of where if they were the original orange LEDs that you get on the Mini. So really impressed with the quality of the dial faces, so Chameleon LEDs, so he's done those for me. You can see them there, black and yellow. Pretty standard for now, just to match with the interior as it currently sits, with all the sort of the black and yellow everywhere. I think they're nice and simple. Wow, so with the car off, you can see those white LEDs, and I think that looks absolutely amazing with the new black and yellow theme. So we start the car, ignore the fact that there's absolutely zero petrol because I'm currently self-isolating, so I can't go and get any. But there you go, you can see them now lit up and looks absolutely spot on. Really pleased with them. Chameleon LED have done a great job of printing those, and they've come out really well. And then you've got the white LEDs. They just give something a bit different to the standard orange that you'd normally get. So I think that's a really smart upgrade. And I'm quite glad that the previous owner had that done, because I certainly benefit from it, because I think that looks really smart in the dark. Okay, so hopefully you found that wasn't too bad an install. So if you liked today's video, please hit that like button and hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell if you're not already subscribed, so you get alerts every time new videos go up onto the channel, whether it's for the R56, the BRZ, the R53, and any future projects that have, because I'm sure in the future there's going to be potentially another car, because I'm going to have to commute, and I've got quite a long commute coming up next year. So I'm playing with the idea of maybe picking up another car. We don't know, we'll see where the future takes us. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.